Welcome to our second full show, Tony, of GLIAC Weekly. We had our mega show last time, fit it all in one show.
We kind of we kind of skipped out on a second show.
Well, you know what, there wasn't that much to cover, so didn't want to waste everyone's time with another one. But I liked my Cub hat so much yesterday. Apparently, it's decided to be back on my head today for from Northern Sun. It's all in the same super region, so it doesn't matter, right? But
Roosevelt's in Chicago. You're good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, Tony, tell me a little bit about as I kind of load up our stuff, get it all ready for the show. Tell me a little bit about your weekend. Did you have a chance to head on over to the Ferris game at all, or what did your weekend look like?
Yeah, I was Thursday night. I was at Ferris until just before halftime, and then left on dad duty because I had to get back to our high school to watch the youngest on the varsity dance team perform at halftime, and then do some sideline work there in the third quarter. So yeah, so I stayed at that high school's game for most of the second half, and then I did see Grand Valley's opener on Saturday.
Now, did you have a chance to see our guy Rob Bentley at all and Sandy at Ferris, or did you not have a chance to run into them?
Yeah, I actually did. They had me on their pregame show, gotcha. So I got a chance to get a little airtime in the Big Rapids airwaves and wherever that goes.
Were they throwing rocks at the press box when you were up there, or did everything go okay?
No, actually, they change it up. Sometimes it's rocks, sometimes it's nails, sometimes it's shards of broken glass. It's whatever whatever the throngs decide to dream up for when they.
Did you mention to them? Oh, by the way, I picked Ferris to win the national championship.
Yeah, that didn't seem to matter. So
they didn't phase them at all. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well,
only handsome guys like you get passes wherever they go. So I got to take some shrapnel when I go into places.
No. I don't even know where enemy lines are anymore. My lines are all blurred apparently.
Hopefully, the folks at Wayne aren't waiting for me with pitchforks tomorrow when I go to watch them play Tiffin. So.
Oh, early cat out of the bag. So you're going to a Thursday evening game then?
I am.
Nice. I like it. Good for you, man. I wish I had one right in my immediate area. I don't. So I'll have to go and just settle with a Saturday game. Sioux Falls is hosting Northern State, 6 p.m. start. So I kind of like the fact that I got a later start. But let's go ahead and we're going to pull up, Tony, what transpired in the GLIAC this week. Chance that you may already know some of this, but if you don't, we're going to tell you all about it. We've got anything from some Thursday games, Tony, to some contests played on Saturday, a few surprises as well. And we will go ahead and we'll kind of walk through these. We're also going to have, for each show, we're going to try and have at least one, maybe two highlight videos to show you guys. To be perfectly frank, guys, I would love to tell you that these shows, for all those watching, that they're just going to be highlights of one game after another. But when we're having to kind of go ahead and scrounge all that up, it's plenty of work on our side to kind of put some of that together. So, if any of the schools want to send us stuff ready made in about a 90-second package of their highlights for their game, hit Tony and I up. We'd be all for it. But looking at this here, Tony, we're going to go ahead and kind of look first at probably the biggest game that was getting played, I think, nationally this last weekend. If we're really going to be honest, we had our number one team in Ferris State going against Pitt State, who was ranked 10th at the time.
Yeah,
and we'd be remiss if we didn't look here first. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at some video, Tony. Obviously, people can kind of soak in what we have with the box score, but we're also going to go ahead and I'm going to play the video. And Tony, I'm going to let you describe a little bit about what you saw about this new look 2025 Ferris squad.
Well, I mean, a new look, maybe in a few different few different people in some different in some spots that there were guys that we were looking at for last year that aren't there anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of new look, old look, right? I mean, so it's a lot of motion, a lot of trying to take your eyes places, and then all of a sudden they're still coming right straight at you. We talked in the preview show a couple of weeks ago about how we really thought it could be anybody at quarterback between Chase Carter or Carson Gulker or Wyatt Bauer. And I think we both kind of got the sense that there might be a good chance it was Bauer. But if anybody watched the presser after the game, he said he didn't know until 10 minutes beforehand when coach told him. I
thought that was pretty wild.
I actually had a conversation pregame in the press box with a couple of folks too, and they said they didn't know. And these are people that were close to the program. So, for a guy who found out just a few minutes early that he was going to go out and run things, obviously he performed quite well. I think the thing I took away from this game that surprised me the most was, and I think I mentioned this on the Sunday night show, is Ferris just looked bigger than Pitt State. And that was on both sides of the ball, but particularly when Ferris was on offense. And I think you saw some of the gaps that Bauer had to run through were just very accommodating. And that's not to say that he's not super skilled or super quick, and he's not going to cause a lot of people problems just with his skill set. But when your offensive line is creating those sorts of gaps or getting this kind of push, where you put a Brady Rose in there, who's, let's face it, as a tailback or as a wing back is going to be a little on the undersized side, and he still has an easy push to get into the end zone on a play like that. It's just kind of the same old thing. I mean, that Ferris offensive line is doing the work that it's been known for, and it makes running your offense and being effective at moving the ball all day long really, really easy. Now, what's interesting is as you dive deeper into this, though, and we did talk about this on Sunday too, Pitt State did not go away.
Right.
The funny thing is if you look at the box score, Pitt State actually outgained Ferris in this game. Here's a good example that this play right here is where you get so used to them running all these different motions and still somehow it's a keep or it's a handoff or it's a quick out. And then all of a sudden Tariq Barrett sneaks behind you and Bowers hangs on to it long enough to be able to dunk it over the top and you still give up a big play. So, yeah, I was surprised to see how undersized Pitt State looked compared to Ferris. Now, I don't know how that's going to translate into the rest of the MIAA. But that's the first time I've seen an MIAA team like a Pitt State look that much smaller. I mean, it was noticeable. And I was texting with people who were watching it on TV. I had a couple of people I knew up in the press box that were looking at it. So I was trying to make sure that it wasn't just my angle from the field. And I had other people corroborating it. So again, that's not to say that that's always going to be the case week in and week out for either of these teams, but it was something that was noticeable. And Ferris definitely took advantage of it with how they ran the ball.
If you take a look back with the way Coach Anise has run the quarterback in a few different ways, and you go back when they had, what was it, Barnhart, and then you've got Chambliss, and it feels like he has really figured out a really nice way to be able to have a quarterback in that +1 game and be able to really get upfield with how good his offensive line is. And I watched this and I thought, you know what? This is a warning shot to everybody else in the country. If you can't stop this, you're in trouble.
For sure.
Like game over kind of trouble.
Well, and I think the thing that you're seeing too is some of these guys, again, they're super athletic, but they throw it well enough. I think if you go back to the early days of Coach Anise at Ferris, when you had bigger guys at quarterback like Jason Vanderlaan or a J. Rue Campbell, these are guys who were they could just run you over. And so while Ferris was always good at being explosive and being able to get big plays, particularly in the run game, and then tricking you into seeing things that weren't there and then dumping it off and getting guys in space, they still always knew that if they could get themselves to third and basically 3 or 4 or less, they could just run straight power and just plow through you. And they'd have a big galoot with the ball who all he's got to do is get to the line and fall forward, and he's going to get 2 yards. And so I think that's the difference is these days, basically, if you kind of go back to everything since COVID, the quarterbacks have been just slightly more athletic on the athletic side. I mean, Trent Shambles, I think, is bigger than people think. But yeah, I mean, it just seems like this is more about being able to be a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more about getting guys into space and a little bit more about letting the offensive line actually create seams versus just shoving people as hard as they can. I think that's a fair call out.
Right. I mean, it's like you see some of these plays, Tony, and they're upfield in a hurry.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if they're getting through that, this play looks like instead of going for 8 yards, it looks like it's going to go for big chunk yards.
Well, and you have to understand too, like the first play in the clip was Bauer basically. I think that I don't know. I don't study enough film. It certainly looked like a designed run. Right. Where basically they just sent everybody on verticals and the middle of the field just sitting there wide open. So all he had to do was just take that extra half a beat to sell that it was a pass play and then let it go. And I mean, he was 15 yards downfield before anybody was near him. So yeah, it's a lot to plan for. And then the problem you got too is that you've got a defense that there are a lot of guys on that defense that can really play. One of the guys that kind of hasn't gotten talked about a lot, which I find a little bit curious, was Jalen Jones. They were calling his name in the first half when I was there the whole doggone time. I mean, he was everywhere.
I thought a year ago that he was a little underrated. You remember you and I talked about him. He's a nice size player for the position, covers a lot of ground. Mm-hmm. And another guy who I think has kind of been under the radar for them, Tariq Brett, was a really good return man, dangerous return man for them a season ago. He did a little of everything in this one. Mm-hmm. And with his speed, it makes you wonder, is he going to be one of those guys who can go ahead and make plays a little all over the place? And then all of a sudden you got him and you got Brady Rose doing some of those same type of things. And you got to worry about the quarterback. And it's like, oh boy.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Now you had gone ahead, and there's an image here that you captured from your sideline view, even with the end zone here, and you can actually see what you're talking about the disparity there in the size on the O line versus D line. And Ferris State's guys, we already know they are the typical 6'5", 6'6", 310. That's just how that's their kind of their MO. And so I can see totally what you're getting at here.
And this shot might belie that a little bit from the standpoint that, Ferris doesn't always go into a 3-point with how they start their plays. Sure. And I don't think they were here. And you could see that, three of the four linemen for Pitt had their hand in the ground. So it does give you a little bit of a false sense of it. But if you just watch them standing in front of each other as they were coming up out of the huddle to come to the line, you could see it. And you were just like, wow, they're just bigger.
I think we may see a fair amount of that this year in general with them, but we'll see. Well, with that all said, as we go ahead and we kind of move through things, not only are we talking about some other, guys on both sides of the ball, but special teams as well. Mitchell Middleton here got special teamer of the week. Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Well, and so what's funny is that, if you've watched Ferris enough times, you'll see that they put two punters back a lot. And so sometimes you don't always know who's actually going to punt. And so they punted 5 times, and Mitch only punted 4 of them. So LeSean Mumpfield actually had another punt, and then he ran a nice fake where they actually threw it to Gulker out of his. And Gulker basically played H-back most of the game, and they got a first down on it. But the 4 punts that Middleton did have, he averaged over 52 yards a boot, and all 4 of them ended up inside of the 20. So when they did call his number, he was super effective, and obviously that earned him a nod from the league office for the week.
When they did the fake punt and the rollout throw, and it was to Gulker, I said out loud, I said, "Of course they did." I mean, it's just like one more thing, you don't have enough to worry about already. We're going to throw this at you.
But again, that all falls into the way that they tend, Tony likes to do things up there. I mean, Mumpfield was a really successful high school quarterback. So it's like, you see him back there. He's not super big, but you just think he's another punter. And it's like, no, he can throw it.
Well, it's like we've joked about for years. Brady Rose probably throws as good a ball as anybody there on that team.
He was a high school quarterback too, which you see that a lot. I mean, that's not uncommon, but I mean,
Sure.
nevertheless.
Well, anytime you can take a guy who might be the best athlete on his football team and is being put at that in high school, it's not a bad idea to get that guy for college.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
well, moving right along, I don't think we were surprised at all by the Ferris outcome. Matter of fact, I thought for us it was fairly predictable. This was not this game. Interesting, tale of two halves here. Bemidji is up 17-16, and Connor Carver, who is kind of their, big, 6'4" running quarterback. He hurt Mankato in the playoffs last year with like an 80-yard scamper because he gets an open field and he takes off like a deer.
Yeah.
Young player. He hurt Michigan Tech twice early, and then they really didn't get much offense after that, Tony. And Alex Bueno has himself a nice game, dual threat, and Tech takes off in the second half, and all of a sudden we got a real big win, for the Huskies at home in their opener.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. We definitely did feel like, Ferris was probably going to be a double-digit, maybe 3-score favorite, and that's kind of how it shook out. I didn't see Tech winning, didn't surprise me. Right. Winning by a 20 spot, that raised an eyebrow for me when I was following things along Thursday night. And so, I mean, you nailed it. Alex Bueno, I think we talked a little bit about this on Sunday, is that, Tech always has good quarterback play, but it has been probably a little more one-dimensional. I mean, there are guys who've always been able to run, and they're faster than you think they are, but they use that more when they scramble. Well, obviously, Bueno had 16 carries in this game. I think Jake Roof had 17. So, I mean, he was right there at in terms of they were relying on him to be the rushing offense as much as their lead running back. And, that ability to be able to do both things is maybe a little bit unique to what we've seen from Tech over the stretch of years. And obviously, as the second half wore on, Bemidji really didn't have an answer for it. So, and then, a couple key turnovers didn't help either. I think I talked about this on Sunday too. After Tech got it to 31-17 on the ensuing kickoff, Bemidji fumbled. And Tech set up shop at the 23-yard line. And it's like, okay, if you got any shot of a comeback, you can't give the team that's ahead of you short fields as the fourth quarter starting to go. And and basically, Tech did the job there, closed, got that last score and shut the door on it.
And I had picked in the Northern Sun show I picked Bemidji to finish 5th because I thought that losing 9 of 11 starters on defense, and frankly, their biggest impact guys, I thought, this could be a tough season for them. But you know what? They were winning in the first half, but you know what? They didn't get a sack in this game. You know what? That's not Bemidji State of the last few years. I mean, let's be honest. That's their calling card has been them winning the line of scrimmage and getting to the quarterback and disrupting the other offense. And you know what? With Bueno having coming on the second half like he did and having the game he did, first off, it tells me for the Northern Sun that Bemidji is not quite the same as they were a year ago if they didn't get to the quarterback. But at the same time,
right,
this begs the question, though, Tony. How good is this Michigan Tech team now? They ended the season last year in a positive manner.
Yep.
If they have a quarterback who can be a dual threat for them, which we think may be one of those kind of things that could really help them in games where the pass game isn't going to be there all the time, can we have something on the +1 run? I mean, does this maybe move them into that same conversation with the Davenports and the Saginaws, or is it too early? Is this a case of we've only got one game played, don't have an overreaction?
Well, sample size, right? We talk about that all the time. I actually am looking at Tech and their next couple of games thinking, okay, I might have them a little bit more favored than maybe I would have. but let's have them go win those games and not lay any eggs, and then see where we are as we head into GLIAC play.
Because they're going to be the favorite for the next month in every game they're in.
Right. Yeah. But to your point, is this Bemidji team the same as what they faced a year ago? And, how does that change things? So I am actually a little bullish on Tech at the moment.
Right.
But again, I think I want to see what they do over the next 2-3 weeks to really be able to say, hey, people in the GLIAC need to watch out for these guys.
Well, and you're kind of alluding to, Tony, obviously we're going to see later in the show that they're making the trip out to South Dakota to play South Dakota Mines. Then they're at Hillsdale, which I think Hillsdale is trending up. I don't think that's going to be a gimme game at Hillsdale. But then they host Upper Iowa, which I'll be honest, I like them against Upper Iowa.
Yep.
And then they're at Wayne. So you look at, they're going to be favored to start off 5-0. Not that I just cursed you guys at Tech at all. You're probably, the coach is now throwing the clicker. But
Coach Metlak's got his pitchfork ready for you.
Exactly. I'm going to be on a bulletin board for all the wrong reasons. But and then they get into Davenport and Ferris and everything else after that. But I think they're probably one of the more intriguing early season stories for us here, Tony, in the GLIAC.
Yeah, I totally agree. And they're a story for the right reason, right? They went out and got a win against a team that, okay, you felt like they could beat, but they actually had to do it. They came up, a half a beat short last year, and they fixed it this year.
Well, and it's no surprise that Alex Bueno ends up being Offensive Player of the Week, as a result, when it going over 100 yards rushing. When you take a top 25 team and beat them like you did, he should be getting that. I totally agree with that.
Yep, same here.
Now, speaking of getting the focus of things for maybe not the right reason, we welcome Saginaw Valley into the chat.
Yeah.
We said, Tony, a few weeks ago when you and I discussed this game, that Northeastern State was probably a little undersold. They had competed and punched up with Central Oklahoma, had them down 20 or whatever it was,
right,
and had somebody else in a bad spot too. So they've shown that they are both a high ceiling and low floor team, which now moves us to Saginaw Valley, who is feeling like they have some of that same type of identity of high ceiling, low floor, when they lose a game like this to a squad that won 2 games a season ago.
Yeah. And again, to your point, is that 2-game, victory count from last year maybe underselling them a little bit? Okay, that might be fair. At the same time, based on some of the trending that we saw last year in the MIAA, and then what we already saw here in week 0, where is the MIAA these days? You know what I mean? I just the big physical mammoth defenses and powerful offensive lines, that just doesn't seem to be where that league is. It seems like it's shifted to where it's much more offensively driven. And maybe that's part of why Northeastern State was starting to find a little bit more success, is that, okay, the defenses maybe just weren't quite as strong as they were previously. Now, again, there's a lot of season left, and we may find that that's a premature perspective. But if you look at the way things trended last year and then what we saw through a week, it seems like that might be where things are headed. So, okay, so maybe Northeastern State got undersold a little bit. By the same token, we did talk about how Saginaw Valley was going to have to figure out what they were going to do about all the departures on defense. And, giving up 28 points, it's not, I would classify that as a mediocre performance. Okay, that's not terrible. I think what perplexes me is how that offense, with almost everybody back, wasn't able to move the ball. Northeastern State ended up outgaining Saginaw Valley. If we look at the, it wasn't by much, but they still did. If we look at the time of possession, 39-36 for Northeastern State in this game. So, that's basically 2-1. And what that ended up doing was limiting Saginaw's possessions. And so when you only have the ball 8 times, your margin for error goes way down. I mean, it means you got to cash in almost every time you have it. And, it's just that combination of, sometimes you get a penalty at the wrong time and it backs you up and puts you in, 2nd and 18 when you should have been, 3rd and 2 or something like that. And those types of things. I mean, it's not like, Saginaw I don't think they had only the one turnover that was at the end of the game when they were trying to tie it.
Right.
McKenzie was intercepted in the end zone. But again, even just a penalty that throws you off schedule or, a bad snap or anything like that. When you don't get as many chances with the ball, you can't make it up later. And so Northeastern State did a great job of dictating tempo in this game and just not giving the Cardinals opportunities to actually go down and get points. And the few opportunities they had obviously weren't enough.
Saginaw Valley, I hate to say this, but they're going to have plenty of games left to prove that their defense is something closer to resembling last year, because their defense last year, this doesn't happen. It just doesn't.
Oh, no, I agree with that.
And we had Joe in here, kind of speaking a little bit to, things like this. Saginaw seems to lose a game that many feel they should easily win. I mean, I was on the way home from Mankato talking with Chuck Bittner real briefly because I had 3 hours to kill.
Yeah.
And he told me this score, and I said, geez, they've already had their Northwood.
Yeah. Yeah, and they still have to play Northwood, by the way. It's a rivalry game. Yeah. That's a rivalry game. So, I mean, you can't call it a get-back game. That's a rivalry game.
Yeah.
Northwood's going to play Saginaw like its life depends on it every year.
Yeah.
That's been a trophy game for 50 years, I think, or close to it.
Well, and I mean, we love to see those, but I tell you, this was a game that they couldn't start off the year this way with. Now, if you're at Saginaw, you can say, hey, you know what, this doesn't hurt us in the conference race. We can still win the conference and get a bid. Absolutely, you can, but that's a tough ask when you have Ferris and Grand Valley in that conference. But we'll have to see where things go from here. But they're going to probably have to look to be a little more explosive offensively if they're going to not have the ball for that much of the game on the other side.
Well, because obviously that's the blueprint now. Anybody else that can try and figure out how to keep the ball, they're going to try and do it. And I don't think Joe's far off here. I mean, I think, and I think you and I probably would have said this both before and after. Saginaw has, everybody starts 0-0, and we get that. But Saginaw hasn't beaten Grand Valley or Ferris in quite a few years. And so their margin for error until they can get over the hump in those games isn't very large. And to have basically maybe even given up that margin already after one game, again, there's a lot of season left. They could run the table from here. But boy, I was shocked when I saw this score. I really was.
Shocked is the good word for that. And, one of our guys, Kyle, who we're friends with, Grand Valley guy, said this may be the biggest upset in Division II this year.
Well, I think the story's yet to be
extreme, but
the story's yet to be written there, because Northeastern State could very easily all of a sudden be, a 5-6 or 6-5 team, and then this loss doesn't end up looking really like much of anything. It's like you're like, okay, that was a pretty good team, but
right.
If you look at it at face value of what they were last year, okay, I guess you could say that. But that's a story I would say has yet to be written.
Well, moving right along with games. Speaking of not a dull moment on Thursday night,
right?
So I mentioned before I was at Mankato hosting Northwest, and I get a message on my phone that says Moorhead's down 21 goose. Right. In the first quarter or whatever it was, or early second, and I just said, oh my gosh, this is their McKendree. Because last year they went down to McKendree and laid an egg.
Yeah.
And they're a team that's got a lot of offensive firepower. So, And then my immediate thought, though, Tony, was, you know what? They want to play 7-on-7 football. They aren't trying to have this be a fight in a phone booth. And you know what? Northern is trying to run the veer and be physical, and those two don't play real well together. And I thought, you know what? They are getting exposed for what they are at the line of scrimmage. And son of a gun, 37 points and the whole deal. But you know what? They were able to do just a second half. Jack Strand came out and did his thing. And 300 some yards passing and the whole deal, 6 scores,
336 maybe.
Yeah. And I mean, as good a game as anybody in the country had offensively. But what was kind of your take on this and run of emotions that you might have had as you followed this game a little bit on Thursday?
Well, I mean, look, I'm always going to be pulling for the GLIAC team, number one. Number two, the guys up at Northern, they're working hard to try and get that ship righted. And, when you go a couple of years without winning a game, you really are rooting for that streak to end. So when you see them up 21-0, you think, all right, maybe they got a good chance of it. But I mean, the flip side of that is it's okay. How much help were they getting? You know what I mean? I mean, they had a very short field on their first touchdown drive, and then get an interception return for a touchdown. And then their third touchdown was actually a legit long drive. So, okay, at that point, it's like, you got to figure that the Moorhead's help to the situation is probably going to run out. And that's pretty much what we saw. Again, this is another situation where, because of the type of offense that Northern runs, they want to limit possessions. Yep. And they did outpossess Moorhead, I think by about 8 minutes, but it still just wasn't enough. I mean, they needed to be up more into Northeastern state territory to be able to really have held off here. And the funny thing is, though, as this game wore on, Northern ended up falling behind and yet still figured out how to claw their way back to where they had a puncher's chance with an onside kick there with a minute to go. So, I mean, it had to have been a roller coaster of emotions for Wildcat fans. Like, you're up big for the first time in a while, and then you watch it evaporate, and then you fall behind, and then you find a way to claw back and then to come up a little bit short. I mean, it's still a good showing. And so, I'm glad that they at least got off on a decent start. They didn't get clobbered.
I thought this was far more competitive than they have been in a little while here.
Yeah.
They ended up having a little bit of self-inflicted wounds. They ended up putting the ball on the deck 4 times and I think lost 3 of them. And, that's going to hurt you for sure. And, you can only give a guy like Strand so many chances on the other side. And, but wild game. It feels to me like Northern's going to be let's just say a far more interesting team to follow than they were for us maybe a year ago.
Well, again, one game, small sample size, but yeah, I mean,
I'm running with it, Tony.
That's that seems to be, yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, that was a better showing than I think I was anticipating. So I absolutely am tuning in for what they got going on coming up.
Yep, they outgained Moorhead, and they had 290 yards on the ground. So I'm curious to see what that looks like kind of the rest of the way.
Yep. Let's see who else they can do that to.
Well, as we move through the games here, we had talk about an odd football game when you really peel the onion a little bit. But Davenport,
don't peel it too far.
Davenport wins, but I mean, they had a 100-yard pick 6 score. They had another one where they had a short field. They win 21-12 over Ganon. Ganon outgains them by a lot of yards. Yeah. What was kind of your take on this? I mean, I'm not sure what to make of it.
If you look at it statistically, Ganon had the better of it.
Oh yeah.
And in different conversations that we've had over the years, and our buddy Brandon will love this one. If this game were being graded by the modified Bulldog scoring system, Ganon would have gotten the victory, but that's
wouldn't by 2 scores.
That's not how this works. The funny thing is I mean, if you look at statistically, the only statistic that Davenport won is I think they won the turnover margin. They were +1. Other than that, Ganon had the better of it in every category. Third downs, time of possession. I mean, all of it. But this is the type of game that, for some reason, Davenport has this knack where they figure out how to bend really, really far defensively and not break. They just don't let you score. And I've seen this far too many times with other games that they've had, especially outside of conference over the last handful of years, where you just like they go down to Bowie and they don't play that well, but they still come home with a win. They go over to Truman and they really probably weren't as good or better than Truman, but they found a way to get the win. Right. And I mean, you saw that last year against Central Missouri. I mean, I was at that game, and if there's not a drop pass on their 2-minute drill, they're in field goal range like quick, and they're kicking a game winner. And Brandon Gilo was a 3-time all GLIAC kicker. I mean, they had a guy that could make it. You talk about phone booth games. I mean, that's what Davenport's going to do, is they're going to try and fight you tooth and nail. They're probably going to beat you up a little bit because they're far more physical than everybody seems to think that they are. And I just think over 4 quarters, Ganon just didn't have enough left in the tank to overcome the fact that they were winning in every facet of the game except on the scoreboard. So, yeah, this is just kind of Davenport's MO, it seems like.
Yeah, and I mean, Keonta Nixon,
one catch, of the 6 yards. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, he was.
I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay, I'm hoping that he's going to be more involved with them going forward. But
yeah,
they had 14 first downs at this entire contest. But you know what? They don't ask you how.
Yeah,
they just slot that one in the win column.
There's a one in the win column.
And we move forward. So,
I think looking forward, we do have to try and figure out, okay, I mean, obviously Cephas Harris had a nice game. That's Myron's brother. So apparently the Harrises are big fans of Davenport these days, which is awesome.
Yeah, because he was over 100 yards, right?
Yeah. I think the thing that would concern me is that I think coming out of camp, this is the first time since he's been on campus that I think Davenport felt like DeJuan Mathis was healthy and ready to rock. And he didn't even get all the pass attempts in this game. At some point, they had enough of a reason to want to put Mac Vandenhout in that even he had some time. Now, I haven't been able to follow up to find out if maybe if Mathis got dinged a little bit, or if it was something that Coach McEwen had designed from the jump. I'm not really sure. But when I saw that you had 2 quarterbacks and neither one of them lit it up, I thought, oh boy, this is. If they're basically back to that for last season, like they were last season, the defense, I think they played well enough on Saturday. But man, you keep giving up 400 yards plus, it's going to be a long season if you can't stop that, because teams are going to figure out how to score at some point.
Moving through, as we take a look, defensive player of the week, Markel Guilford ends up getting it. From Davenport, underclassman, and part of that defense that you just spoke of a moment ago.
Yeah, and I think he did have a nice game with 5 total tackles and whatnot and a pass breakup. But I think what the highlight was the 100-yard interception return, which I think actually he caught it actually in the middle of the end zone. But in college they don't count. They don't do it like they do in the pros where they add the end zone yardage. So it probably would have been more like a $105 or $106. But obviously, again, I mean, that touchdown was huge. You've got Ganon going in, and then all of a sudden it's a tutty the other way. I mean, that's ostensibly a 14-point swing, which could have had a huge impact on the flow of that game. So. So a big play like that, and sometimes that's all you need to be able to get the nod for an award like this, for sure.
Well, as we go ahead and we kind of move forward, we get to Grand Valley, and essentially the debut of Andrew Schuster starting at quarterback, right?
Yep.
And I saw I saw a score at half, 21-9, and I kind of did one of these like, it's that close. But then, Grand Valley just kind of wore on them and took care of business in the second half and kind of made it a one-sided game. Tell us a little bit, if you would, about Mr. Schuster at quarterback, and kind of some how the other weapons looked on this Laker team.
Yeah, and I think the bulk of the folks in the stands probably shared your thoughts that, okay, this is only 12 at halftime. I think there were quite a few people I could hear chirping that were saying, all right, they wanted this to be stretched out already. At the same time, the three quarterbacks that Grand Valley is, I think, thinking they're going to use on a regular basis. None of them had really played in college before. Schuster got a little bit of cleanup time in a game or two last year. So this was his first collegiate start. Brady Drogosh saw some action at different points of the game, primarily as a runner.
Right.
He really hadn't played any college ball, and the little bit that he may have when he was at Cincinnati would have been on defense. So, for a first game with guys who really haven't actually seen, live fire, so to speak, all in all, it went pretty well. I mean, Grand Valley won the turnover margin, which Coach Wooster preaches that. So, that was a good way to come out. But I think the thing to take away, though, too, is Schuster ended up 17 of 21. So to come out in your first ever start and hit for over 80% completion rate isn't bad. And it's not like they didn't take shots downfield. He had, I think, a 45-yarder to Kellen Reed in the first half. That was a straight vertical up the seam. And I can think of two or three other, deep ones that he threw. One was an out cut and one was another post where they pushed the ball downfield. I don't think they did it extensively, but it's not like he was just throwing, dinks and dunks and quick 3-yard outs and all that kind of stuff all day. So, I mean, it was they kind of took the shackles off him a little bit and let him kind of do things instead of playing in a box, so to speak. So I think that was good. I think that was for Laker fans. They probably are gonna think favorably about that. I think what's probably not getting talked about too is the fact that Grand Valley, I think, had 230 yards rushing in the game. And they had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different guys who got to get into double digits in terms of total yardage. So, to get a young quarterback, a decent look and a decent run through on the day and not get anybody hurt, I think for Grand Valley, this was probably an okay outcome. Again, I'm sure the fan base would like to have seen a bigger delta, but, the W is all that really matters.
Yeah. Now, do you see, is Grand Valley, are we looking at kind of a little bit of a two-headed monster at the run game? Do you think that they're going to commit more to one guy? How do you see that? A little bit of committee?
I think they're going to do whatever they feel like is going to give them the best chance to move the ball situationally. I mean, I don't think this is going to be any different than anybody else that uses multiple quarterbacks. They'll probably either go with some hot hand. They might go situationally with what they want to do. But yeah, I don't know for sure what their plan is. But it sure seemed that they definitely got Drogosh in there, and it seemed like that was something they had planned on doing. So I think you're going to see multiple running quarterbacks.
I'm sorry.
Oh, a running back?
I mean, in the backfield, yeah.
Grand Valley traditionally is more of a hot hand, situational type deployer of running backs. And I mean, I think harder days, that's kind of the last time that they had somebody that you might consider to be a true bell cow that you're going to have in there, and they were going to get the bulk of the carries. But even before that, I mean, that's just something that Grand Valley always feels like they've got 3 or 4 guys that can tote it. Some of them might be slightly more adept in the pass game than others, but in general, they're gonna switch people out pretty frequently. In some of these games, when they've got somebody a little bit overmatched, you tend to see a little bit more. I don't know that you would see as many running backs as they put out there this past Saturday in future games. But yeah, the idea that it's going to be one guy or 2 guys and that's about it, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw 3-4 different guys getting carries every week.
Sure. Well, we've gone ahead and kind of looked at the games that were. Now we're looking at what we have upcoming. We have 2 games tomorrow evening. Thursday night starts Tiffin at Wayne State. We've got Michigan Tech going to South Dakota Mines. Now, we had some interesting comments along the way earlier in the show. As I go ahead and we've got Chip, who is a loyal fan on of our shows. Chip said that he is going to be making the trip on out there. So, Chip, safe travels. And I know his son is a player, I think an offensive lineman on Tiffin, if I'm not mistaken. And then we've got Armac Insider commenting that Michigan Tech's got a short little trip of almost 1,000 miles on out. I'm guessing that they're catching a flight, but I don't know. This day and age, it kind of is whatever works best for you kind of thing. So, yeah.
Out of Houghton, if they're going to fly, I would guess they would be chartering something, or they may even have had to. I don't even honestly know how big the airport is in Houghton. They may have had to run over to Marquette. I have flown in and out of Marquette before, so I know that they've got at least commercial airlines that go there.
Fair enough. And Chip just chimed in. I did not realize that Chip also has a freshman linebacker there too. Chip, you're all in for Tiffin. Okay.
Quite prolific.
Yeah. So we then in the Saturday games, we got Northern Michigan at Northwood. We got Quincy at Roosevelt. We have Ganon at Saginaw Valley. Ferris going to Lake Erie. That ought to be a nail biter. And then people like Gary going to come get me in the comments. Then Black Hills gets Sioux Falls the first week, and now they're going to Grand Valley the next week. And by the way, I have heard that they are flying. They were originally going to bus it, and they reconsidered that and decided they were going to fly. So, but let's go ahead and kind of break down some of these, Tony. The Tiffin game is obviously the first one.
I want to know how far Black Hills has to travel to get to Grand Valley.
You know what?
One could argue that's that game as far further than Mines to Tech.
Yeah, you know what? Somebody in the comments while we're running the show, throw that in the comments. Feel free. But so before because we'll get to that soon enough. Tiffin, Wayne State. We talked about Wayne State in a little bit in our preview. That we feel some of that is they go as far as their quarterback will to some extent, and plays that he can make. What do you feel like we know about Tiffin?
Well, they've got Ronald Blackman back as the lead running back. I mean, and that's a guy who I think he was a snippet under 1,400 yards last year.
I think he might be the top returning rusher in Division II.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But, obviously when having a great running back return is fantastic. But when you've got a quarterback like Alex Johnson, who's a D1 bounce back who really performed well for the Dragons a lot last year. I mean, that's a luxury is when you can get a multi-year starter at quarterback back. So, to me, the biggest thing that I'm looking at for Wayne tomorrow night is that defense has got to play better than it did throughout the bulk of last year. So you can see, they were giving up basically almost 400 a game, against top level guys who are super experienced. That is just not going to get it done. And then on the Wayne side of it, I've heard some rumblings. I don't know how true it is, and I'm going to continue to investigate that going into tomorrow. But I heard some rumblings that whether Champ Edwards is going to play tomorrow night is a question. So I could be getting that from unreliable sources. So I'm not going to say that that's gospel, but I think that changes the calculus if it does. Cause I mean, we both know that he is one of the more unique playmakers in the GLIAC and certainly I would say gives, not to disparage the other quarterbacks that Wayne has. They've got some guys that are talented, but Champ gives them the best chance to win. I think that's a fair way to put it.
Well, and I think it then creates the question of Tiffin's got some offensive weapons. They also have Chris Walton, defensive end, had 13 and a half sacks last year, 18 TFLs. He's a first-team All-American guy for us, along with Blackman at running back, who's number 0 in the backfield. Mm-hmm. And you look at the quarterback situation, you immediately think Wayne State's going to have to keep up. Yep. Meaning It just feels like Tiffin's going to be able to put up some points here in this one. Tony, I'm leaning to Tiffin on this one. Which way would you go on this? Would you say Tiffin, or do you think Wayne State at home still a GLIAC team wins this?
Well, I think if Champ Edwards is able to play, then I think the chances for Wayne to keep this close and maybe be able to jump up and bite somebody as the game progresses, I think is much improved. If he's not able to go again, I'm not sure, why that would be, but if it ends up being the case, then yeah, I think it throws a little bit more of a question mark, and their ability to keep up, I think, starts to get a little bit tougher to come by. But
that becomes a tough ask. Yep.
Yeah. So at home, Adams Field's actually a pretty unique place to play. They've really only got very small stands on the visitor side, but a really nice, big, tall grandstand on the home side, and you actually really do get a bird's eye view of the field from the top of that grandstand, whether you're in the press box or not. So it actually is a fun place to watch a game. But in the environment, they usually try to do a pretty good job putting some folks in the seats. They do draw okay for being in downtown Detroit. There's just so many people around. You'd like to see them be able to get a few more folks in the stands. So hopefully for that opener tonight, hopefully the rain holds off and they're actually able to get a good crowd and maybe get them into it.
Having the NFL open on Thursday night probably doesn't help our Thursday night game chances, but yeah, you know what? We're not going to be able to compete with that. We know that. So Michigan Tech and South Dakota Mines. By the way, we did have someone in the chat. We've got Ryan Gladwin. I'm sorry, the chat just moved on me. The chat, Ryan Gladwin, who writes our SAC column for us, the Lenore Ryans of the world and squads like that. Black Hills to Grand Valley, a short drive, only 1,004 miles. So very similar, but yeah. So that's that would make I would understand very much why they're flying at that point. But
I would hope they're flying.
Yeah. No, I heard from Coach Bresky, the head coach. I'm sorry, from Black Hills State, that they are making that trip on a flight. But Michigan Tech, South Dakota Mines. Okay. We talked plenty about Michigan Tech earlier. South Dakota Mines, I was not expecting them to get blanked like they did against Pueblo. Normally they are a middle of the pack RMAC squad and are game in situations like that. It almost feels like they've got some offensive parts that were missing, and they haven't quite gotten it rebuilt how they want to yet. Tony, what's kind of your take on this?
That's a bullseye there. So Jake Martinelli was their quarterback a year ago, and he put up numbers pretty much all year, but he had a whale of a game when they were in Houghton a year ago. He threw for 440 something, I think 5 touchdowns, and I think he ran.
Did that go to overtime 60. Or something too?
It went to 4 overtimes.
That's okay. That's why I remember that. Okay.
So, wow. Now, by that same token, Alex Freeze was still playing quarterback at Tech, and I think he threw for over 400 as well. So it was kind of a two-way street with defense being optional in that game. But with that said, I think based on how Tech performed last week, the only way that we can gauge it is, all right, these two teams played the same two teams last year to start. So obviously Tech performed even better this year against Bemidji than they did last year. Mines kind of got pounded by Pueblo both last year and this year, maybe a little bit more so this year. And I just worry that without a known quantity at quarterback like they had last year, I remember when we were talking about this game last year, we knew about Jake Martinelli already. Right. And so I think Mines has got maybe a little bit more to figure out offensively so far than what it seems like Tech may have. So, so I definitely like the Huskies to be able to get to 2-0.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, and certainly that's a long trip.
Yeah.
There could be some
that doesn't help.
That. Yeah, how well does the team travel in a moment like this? But I think Tech's got too much good stuff going on, and they just need to kind of ride that wave here. But Northern Michigan at Northwood. Northwood has not played a game yet this season. They were a 6-5 ball club a year ago. Northern Michigan, we're looking at them through a little different lens right now, Tony, after that game with Moorhead. Are they the kind of team who's going to battle with teams that are right in the middle of the pack? Because that's Moorhead's kind of a middle of the pack Northern Sun. Or is this end up, they go on the road and we have some road woes? I don't know. How do you see this?
Well, I definitely like the fact that they've got a game under their belt. I think that
No doubt.
bodes well for them. Traditionally, Northern, if they're going to win a game, it almost always seems to happen when they're playing at home in the dome.
Sure.
So I will not undersell the impact that going on the road has for them. I think defensively, I actually like where Northern possibly could be in this game, just from the standpoint that they obviously struggling to stop the pass was one of the issues that they had, but that's just it, is they did that even though they know that's what Moorhead wants to do. Northwood is far more balanced these days than they used to be back when they ran the wood bone. They were your standard option team where they'd average. I can remember I've said this on air on one of our shows before. I remember there was one of the years that they made the playoffs in the aughts and they averaged 49 yards passing a game. They're not like that anymore. So I actually think the fact that they're a little more balanced maybe makes it a little bit, more easy for Northern to be able to be prepared for it. Just because it's something more akin to what they're used to practicing against or even seeing throughout the rest of the GLIAC. With that said, Northwood's been on the rise. I mean, obviously they got Saginaw last year. They won, I think, a few games that maybe folks weren't thinking. I mean, those last couple of years that they were in the GLIAC, winning 1 or 2 games was really a struggle for them. And for them to get over 500 last year was definitely a good step forward. That young coaching staff, you can really sense that they've got some things going and that they feel like they're competitive in the GMAC. How will they do against the type of offense that they used to run themselves? Right. I guess that's the key. And I guess that's what I'm most interested to see here is, okay, we know Moorhead's defense maybe isn't the most stout.
Yes.
Let's go on the road and let's move the ball and let's put up 291 against these guys. Let's see what we do against somebody else that maybe the defense is just a little bit more on the physical and a little more straight up side. Yeah. So, I as much as I don't know that I'm going to call Northern winning this game, I think it is a game they could win just based on what we saw last week. But I hate to stick my neck out on a small sample size. But I actually think this is going to be a competitive game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how Northern fares.
Northwood being good against the run, less than 100 yards a game defensively, that a year ago, that's a bit of a concern to me. We'll have to see how it turns out. I like Northwood at home in this one, but I would like to see Northern Michigan get to the pay window here and not have that continue to go where we're looking for a few seasons to win a ball game. So
same.
Quincy at Roosevelt. I got a chance to see a little bit of Quincy this last week because they went in the Northern. They played Concordia St. Paul, who's not a strong football team. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, they're struggling right now, but I mean that was like a 37-7 or 40-7 game, whatever it was. Quincy rolled
38-7.
Yeah, so. They only gave up 177 yards of total offense. I'm not sure that bodes real well for Roosevelt, who wasn't exactly a juggernaut offensively a year ago. They also lose probably their best offensive player to Davenport that we talked about earlier in Keonta Nixon. I just feel like, Roosevelt's at home. I think Quincy's coming in a little hot, though. Tony, how do you see it?
Yeah, and I really want to see Roosevelt do well just because they have had some upheaval since last season, losing their coach and having to promote the coordinator and then, losing Keonta Nixon, like you say, I think he was their only all GLIAC performer, and he ends up going to another team in the league. They had to get a new quarterback, and I think we talked about on the preview show, they got 2 or 3 transfers that are D1 bounce backs, but it's like, okay, what are they going to do, and how are they going to fit into Roosevelt's scheme? If there's anything that Roosevelt kind of hung its hat on, is that they were pretty solid defensively last year. 3-11 a game is not a bad showing, against a GLIAC schedule. So the question is, can they slow Quincy down enough? And I mean, we've seen this Quincy team, who perennially used to be, boy, they were a team that were hoping to get a win every year. And the last couple of years in the GLVC, they have been kind of middle and starting to work their way up to that second tier, to where they're winning. They're having winning records and winning some ball games. And so I feel like they've got a little bit more put together, and the fact that they've played a game already, I think bodes well for them. So, I mean, I think Roosevelt, maybe they'll come out and surprise us, and the new parts and pieces on offense will perform well. But until we see it, it's kind of hard to put a lot of stock in it.
And like you may mention Billy McKeon, the defensive coordinator who got moved on up to being the head coach. I mentioned briefly last year, I called one of his games back when he was at St. Xavier of Chicago. Yeah. He is a Hall of Famer for them. He was quite a wideout for them back from, I want to say, 06 to 09. And he was on a few teams that ended up making trips on out here to Sioux Falls in the NAIA playoffs way back when. So I hope the best for Coach McKeon. We're going to need to find a time to get him on the show. We'll probably find a way to get a few more coaches on the show, than we did a year ago. We'll etch that out. We just haven't gotten down that road yet. But it'll be interesting to see how they compete in this first contest, what their offensive identity is going to be, and so forth. Their offensive coordinator, ironically, had been at Quincy for years before this. So he may know a thing or two about them. We'll have to see. Ganon, once again, we can't get rid of Ganon. I didn't realize that they were in the GLIAC this year.
Well, they used to be in the GLIAC.
I know. But So we got Ganon coming on in. Don't know what to make of them after that first game. We're not sure we know what to make of Saginaw Valley. So this game is all up in the air. Tony, what do you make out of this after what you saw in week one?
Well, obviously Ganon's offense is capable enough that they put up 422 against Davenport. And while I think Davenport's defense, I think top to bottom, maybe by the end of the year they'll be as good as they were last year. I don't know if at this point they are. I mean, you lose Austin Allward and Jamate Peck and Cam Grodhouse. I mean, those are a lot of big shoes that need to get filled.
Yeah.
And so is that defense as good? Maybe not yet, but it's still a Davenport defense, and Davenport plays good physical defense, and Ganon still found a way to put a good number on them offensively. So if I'm Saginaw Valley and I'm looking at Northeastern State just put 400 plus on me, I'm concerned. Now, with that said, if you lost a game that you felt like you should have won last week and you didn't play real well, I also think you're going to come out pretty angry. So I like Saginaw to rebound here, but I'm cautious about it just from the standpoint that if that defense isn't strong enough yet that it allows teams to come into your barn and dictate tempo, that could make things really interesting. And I mean, with all due respect to Ganon, this is a game that shouldn't be very interesting. Saginaw should be able to win this by, I would think 3-4 scores, and it shouldn't be a thing. But just based on what we saw last week, you sit there and think to yourself, okay, Coach Brady's really got to get the troops rallied to dial it in and say, okay, last week was last week. Let's go 1-0 this week. This is a team we need to handle. Let's get after it. And I think they maybe have to do some things maybe a little bit more creatively to make sure that, the offense is able to stay on the field just that little bit more and have a little bit more rhythm to it.
Yeah, this is one to keep an eye on to see, what Ganon team shows up at that point, and can Saginaw Valley rebound like we think that they will?
And what Ganon team shows up is an interesting question. How down are they after losing a game last week that they probably felt like they should have won?
And now you're on the road and the whole deal. But
right.
Ferris at Lake Erie. I don't have much more than that, Tony. That's what we got. Ferris.
I don't know that there's a lot to see here, Witt, to be perfectly honest with you. This is I think for teams that are at the top end of the national echelon like this, you get a game like this, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Lake Erie. Again, they're a former GLIAC member as well, but the struggle's been real for them for quite a few years, and this is a game that you literally go in there, you just want to get in there, get your lead, and get some 2s and 3s in there and keep your guys healthy and get the heck out of there. I don't think this is anything more than that for Ferris at this point.
Well, Massey has Ferris as a 45-point favorite. I will take them to cover. But this feels kind of like the American International game they had last year, where it was just kind of like, okay, Ferris just needs to go ahead. We need to get a chance to play plenty of guys on the roster, get a chance to see what the next quarterback can do, a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
And I think if you're Ferris, you just had a really tough, opponent.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so in this game here, you get a chance to, kind of stretch out a little bit, let your find out what you got from a little bit more of the roster than maybe you did before. I think that's a healthy thing for them. So
sure. But, and you'd much rather have this game at home so you could dress, 100 guys and play a whole bunch of them versus, you can only take, 53 or 55 or whatever, 56, whatever the travel limit is these days. So
you realize now on Saturday, Tony, we're gonna flip open our phone and you're gonna see a score, Lake Erie 10-0 early or something, just to mess with us here.
That'll be a fumble return or something like that, man. It isn't gonna be because of anything that Ferris didn't do. So
agreed. Well, as we move into our final game here, and just for those who know, these Wednesday night shows with Tony and I, we will typically be followed by our RMAC guys who come on at about 20 minutes after us, half hour after us or so. So if you can't get enough of D2 coverage tonight, you're going to have a double dip on the typical Wednesdays. Obviously, Tony and I, this is our last contest, so we don't have a whole lot more on our plate tonight, but don't be afraid to go bother them. I mean, go find them in the comments, give them a whole bunch of a hard time. But let's go ahead and unpack a little bit. Black Hills State, Grand Valley. What are your initial impressions as you kind of arrive into this game?
Well, first off, that's an RMAC school that's coming over to Michigan to play. And I will echo what you're saying, that folks probably should pay some more attention to the RMAC show, particularly in the early part of the year, because I think I said it on one of the Sunday night shows, the RMAC schools did an awesome job of getting some really good non-conference games, like just super interesting matchups. So just to see them talk about who they're playing and how they think they match up, that'd be worth it just for that. So as far as this is concerned, I honestly, my familiarity with Black Hills State is a little bit on the limited side. I think for Grand Valley, they are just looking at this as, okay, this is a team that's going to be a step up from what they saw a week before. Black Hills is kind of in that middle, maybe trying to work towards the topper end of the RMAC, which is a conference that, Grand Valley fans know really well from having played, multi-year series with Pueblo and Mines. And so, the brand of ball there is much more physical than what Grand Valley saw this past week. So this is a team in Black Hills that's going to come in thinking they can win this game. And quite frankly, they probably feel like they might have let one get away at Sioux Falls last week. But this is a team that can give Grand Valley some fits. And if this those young skill guys don't execute well offensively for Grand Valley, the defense could be called on to do more work than I think Laker fans might want.
Yeah, I had a chance to take in this game after I got back from my Mankato contest, and it was an interesting one. Sioux Falls outgains them, for whatever it is, 448 to 306.
Yep.
But they were able to. They have a wide receiver, TJ Chukwura, who was out last year, hurt, I think almost the entire season, played the year before. He got Sioux Falls 3 times for a score, and he was a handful. He really good route runner, gets open, and I was pretty impressed with him. Now they made a point; they could not run the ball against Sioux Falls, and they are a physical style team, but they couldn't run the ball, so they ended up getting fairly pass happy, and they were looking to get rid of the football very quickly. So a lot of short stuff. And I would imagine they're going to feel like they're going to have to do some of the same things in that Grand Valley contest because
100%.
Grand Valley is not going to let them run the ball. And
nope,
so
they won't. And if there is a section of the defense that I think has a lot of youth to it, and we talked about this in the preseason, with losing Ian Kennelly to he made it to the last cut with the Lions, and then a couple of their other corner starters left for D1 via the portal. That's a group that has some youth to it and some inexperience. They did shore it up with a couple of transfers, a couple of D1 guys, and I think a D3 guy, and they feel pretty good about them. And they played pretty well last week against Lincoln. But again, I don't know that they are going to see an every down caliber passing attack last week like they are with Black Hills coming in. And you're right, TJ was all over the place and gave the coup some fits. And so, that's something that they're going to have to look out for.
Now, the challenge that they are going to have is Sioux Falls ran for over 200 yards on them. And if Sioux Falls was able to do that, I think Grand Valley's thoughts are we can do that same type of thing, being a physical ball club. I really think that Grand Valley would like to have balance and not just ground and pound here. I think Grand Valley is for certain, a favorite of probably 2 scores and change. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Black Hills was able to stick around here for a little bit because they're going to be a better opponent than Lincoln was.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, that's a long road trip. And that's an interesting environment for them to be going into. They don't play in an environment like that in the RMAC. There's just nothing like it.
Yeah, and this is the lone Saturday night game on Grand Valley's schedule. They typically, in the past, they would play pretty much always on Saturday night. And then that's kind of gotten shifted to where usually it's half the games. And this is the only one of their home games that's at night. So, first week with students that are going to stay on campus, not a holiday weekend, and the environment should be pretty loud. So it'll be a good get for Black Hills, and I think Grand Valley, this is a good opponent for them. Yeah. And they can't get caught looking ahead either, because obviously they travel to Pitt State a week later, and you can't look past a team like this that can sling the ball around a little bit, and all it takes is a couple of slip tackles or blown assignments, and all of a sudden this is a team that is hanging around with you, and all of a sudden you're down, and you have to start dealing with some stuff that you really weren't planning on.
No doubt about it. Well, Tony, that's it for our games for this week. You obviously have your game tomorrow. I've got mine on Saturday. So are you going to be able to have a chance to see 2 games this weekend then?
It's looking that way. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Yep. Well, we love being boots on the ground in as many of these games as we can. And
yes, indeed.
I'll be honest, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody who covers D2 as a group who probably goes to as many games as we do. When you add in, Chuck and we add in Ferg, we never know where he's going to be. That's another story entirely. But
he gets to more than all of us.
Absolutely. But we're going to go ahead and kind of step aside and let our guys from the RMAC go ahead and get going on their show here in just over 15 minutes. Tony, I appreciate you making the time once again, and we will be back same time next week if everything goes right, talking about some of those results at that time. So thank you very much for joining us, and have yourself a great night.